I arrived late to the restaurant to have dinner with my son, his fiancée, and some friends. I approached the table without anyone noticing. Then, I heard my own son say, laughing, "My fiancée can't stand my mother. She is too pathetic to be here." Everyone laughed while I stood in silence, but the smiles disappeared when I revealed a single detail. The traffic on Michigan Avenue had delayed me by 20 minutes. 20 minutes that changed my life forever. I arrived at the Golden Terrace restaurant with my garnet velvet bag clutched to my chest, feeling my heart beat with that strange mix of excitement and nervousness. I was going to give Ethan his grandfather's gold watch that night, a watch I had kept for 32 years, waiting for the perfect moment. The hostess pointed me to the table in the back, near the stone fountains. I could hear the laughter from the entrance. I approached slowly, dodging the candlelit tables, adjusting my shawl over my shoulders. No one turned to look at me. They were all leaning forward, as if sharing the funniest secret in the world. Then I heard it, the voice of Ethan, my son, imitating my tone with a cruel exaggeration that pierced me like a knife. "Oh, honey. Did you eat? Do you need money? Do you want me to bring you some Tupperware with pot roast?" The laughter exploded around the table. I froze 10 feet away. The noise of the restaurant faded. There was only that table, that laughter, and the voice of a woman I recognized immediately. Chloe, his fiancée. "Your mom is so..." How do I say it without sounding cruel? Chloe took a dramatic pause, her red nails drumming on her wine glass, old-fashioned. That house smells like mothballs and sadness. I swear every time I go over there, I feel like I'm stepping back 50 years in time. More laughter. Someone joked about living museums. Another mentioned something about doily collections. But what shattered every piece of my soul was what Ethan said next. The worst part is, she doesn't realize how pathetic she is. His voice sounded relaxed, almost proud of his observation. "She literally lives for me. It is sick, which is why Chloe didn't even want her to come today. Too awkward to introduce her as, well, you know." The silence that followed was brief, broken by the nervous laughter of a blonde girl. Chloe raised her glass. "To future dinners without clingy mothers-in-law." "Cheers," Ethan replied, clinking his glass against hers. Something inside me broke. It was not a dramatic break. It was not a scream. It was a cold silence that settled in my chest, freezing 35 years of unconditional love. I took a deep breath. I adjusted my bag and walked the last 10 feet to the table. "Ethan!" My voice sounded calm. Too calm. 7 heads turned at the same time. The transformation on their faces would have been comical under other circumstances. From laughter to shock, from shock to sheer terror. Chloe choked on her wine. Ethan turned as white as the tablecloth. "Mom, you're here." His voice trembled. We didn't hear you come in," I noticed. I kept my gaze fixed on him. "You were very entertained." The waiter walked by. The murmur of the other tables continued. But in our bubble, the silence was absolute. Chloe recovered her composure first, forcing a smile that did not reach her eyes. "Eleanor, what a surprise. We thought you weren't coming." Clearly. I pulled the navy blue velvet case out of my bag. I placed it on the table, right in front of Ethan. "I just came to bring you this, which you forgot at home this morning." Ethan looked at the case without touching it. He knew that case. He had seen it in my drawer his entire life. "Mom, I didn't. It is your grandfather Thomas's watch." I opened the case. The candlelight reflected off the vintage gold. On the hand stopped at 3:15, the exact time my husband died, appraised at $5,000. "I was going to give it to you tonight because I thought it was the perfect moment. Surrounded by friends, celebrating your future." No one breathed. "But you are right about one thing, Ethan." I snapped the case shut with a soft click. Someone as pathetic as me shouldn't be in a place like this, polluting the air with my mothballs and my sadness. I put the case back in my bag. "Enjoy your dinner." "And Chloe." I turned to her. Her face had lost all trace of superiority. "Good luck with your future. You are going to need it." I spun on my heels. My legs were shaking, but I didn't allow myself to run. I walked out with my back straight, my head held high, crossing the restaurant while listening to Ethan's desperate voice calling out to me. I didn't turn back, because in that moment, I understood something I had refused to see for months. I had raised a stranger, and that stranger had just destroyed the mother who sacrificed everything for him. But what none of them knew was that this pathetic, old-fashioned woman was about to teach them a lesson they would never forget. If you want to know how a humiliated mother became the worst nightmare of those who betrayed her, subscribe to this channel, because this story is just beginning. I got home that night and sat in the same chair where it all began 35 years ago. The same carved wooden chair where I received the news that split my life in two. My name is Eleanor Sterling. I am 67 years old, and that night at the restaurant was not the first time my world had collapsed. The first time, I was 32 years old, the age Ethan is now. It was a Tuesday in October. Ethan had just turned 2 and was in the living room playing with his wooden toy cars. I was baking bread when there was a knock at the door. 2 men from the textile plant where Thomas worked. Their faces told me everything before they even opened their mouths. "Mrs. Sterling, we regret to inform you, Thomas had died in an accident, a machinery failure. Instantaneous," they said, as if that eased the pain. He was 34 years old, and he had left the house that morning promising me he would be back early for our son's birthday. He never came back. The life insurance payout was $50,000, a pittance for a life. We had the 2-story house in the Oak Park neighborhood, some furniture, and a future that suddenly looked as black as the dress I wore to his funeral. Everyone expected me to break. My mother begged me to move back in with her. "You are young, Eleanor. You can rebuild your life." Translation: find another husband to support you. But I looked at Ethan, who didn't understand why his dad wasn't coming home, and I made a decision. No one was going to support me. I was going to support myself. The ground floor of the house had great natural light. Thomas used it as a storage room for his tools. I emptied it out in a week. I bought 2 used sewing machines with part of the payout money. I put an ad in the local paper. Seamstress, alterations, and tailoring. Fair prices. The first few months were brutal. I worked from 5 in the morning until midnight. Ethan slept upstairs while I sewed hems, darned pants, altered dresses. My fingers bled. My back burned. But every dollar I earned was a dollar I owed to no one. Little by little, the business grew. Clients returned. They recommended me. I started making sweet 16 dresses, then tailored suits for grooms. One client was so happy with her daughter's dress that she introduced me to a boutique owner. My first contract, 20 dresses for her store, $4,000. I cried when I signed that contract. I hired my first employee, Martha, when Ethan was 7, then Sarah, then Rachel. The workshop became the Sterling Atelier. I secured contracts with 3 department stores. I ended up having 8 employees working with me. And through it all, I turned down 3 marriage proposals. Mr. Henderson, the owner of the dry cleaners, brought me flowers every Sunday. A good, stable man with his own business. I told him no. Professor Miller, a widower like me, invited me to dinner. Cultured, kind, with a solid government pension. I told him no. There was even a young architect who courted me for 6 months. Handsome, successful, 20 years younger than me, but persistent. I told him no. Why? Because every dollar I earned was for Ethan. Every decision I made was with his future in mind. I wasn't going to divide my attention, my energy, my money between a son and a new husband. Ethan was everything. I paid for his Ivy League tuition, $150,000 over 4 years. I worked double shifts, so he wouldn't lack anything. While his classmates were taking out student loans, my son had his tuition paid in full. When he graduated, I bought him his first car, a 2019 sedan. $25,000 that I pulled from my savings without thinking twice. I saw the look of pure joy on his face when I handed him the keys, and every single dollar was worth it, or so I thought. The house is now worth $800,000. The business brings in $15,000 a month. Everything is in my name. Everything built with my calloused hands and my back bent over a sewing machine. And I always told him the same thing. Someday this will all be yours, my love. Everything I built is for you. I never asked him to thank me. I never kept score. Because that is what mothers do, right? We give everything without expecting anything back. But that night, sitting in my chair 35 years later, with Thomas's watch still in my bag and Ethan's words echoing in my ears, I wondered if I had made the biggest mistake of my life. At what point did my sacrifice become pathetic? At what point did my unconditional love turn into something my son was ashamed of? I touched the watch case. Thomas had died going out to buy medicine for Ethan, who had pneumonia. He worked double shifts to give us a good life. He never ran away from me, as Ethan would later imply. And now his son, the child for whom we both sacrificed everything, was calling me pathetic in front of strangers. I closed my eyes. The tears finally fell. But amidst those tears, something else was beginning to take root. Something cold. Something strong. Because if there was one thing 35 years of loneliness had taught me, it was this: survive, adapt, and when necessary, fight. What I didn't know that night was that the real battle was just beginning, and that the snake that had coiled itself around my son had much darker plans than I could have ever imagined. Chloe Vance entered our lives 8 months ago like a perfumed hurricane. Ethan arrived that afternoon with his eyes shining in a way I hadn't seen since he was a kid at Christmas. "Mom, I met someone special. 28 years old, graduated from a top private university, worked at a digital marketing agency. In the photo he showed me, I saw a beautiful woman, fair skin, long, straight hair, perfectly lined lips. Her name is Chloe. I want you to meet her. The first dinner was perfect. Too perfect." Chloe arrived with a bouquet of white calla lilies. "I heard these are your favorites, Mrs. Sterling." Flawless smile. A burgundy dress, modest but elegant. She helped set the table without being asked. She complimented my pot roast. "This tastes exactly like my grandmother's." I should have suspected it then. No one is that perfect. After dinner, while pouring coffee, I gently suggested, "You can call me Mom if you'd like. We'll be family soon." Her smile didn't waver, but her eyes did. Just for a second. "I prefer Eleanor. Mom is a very personal word. I hope you don't mind." I didn't mind. I thought it was strange, but I didn't say anything. The second sign came 2 weeks later. Chloe ran her finger along the back of my olive green velvet sofa. "How vintage." "It must have history. It's 40 years old," I replied with pride. "I bought it when Ethan was 2. It shows. Smile. Always smiling. There are some incredible stores now that sell modern furniture. Minimalist. More functional." Ethan laughed. "Mom is traditional, babe. She likes holding on to things." "Of course," Chloe said, but her eyes scanned the living room like she was evaluating merchandise at an estate sale. The third sign was much more direct. Sundays had always been sacred. Ethan would come over for lunch. He would tell me about his week. We'd watch a movie. 32 years without missing a single Sunday until Chloe. "Mom, I can't today. Chloe and I have a lot of work to catch up on. The next Sunday, Chloe has a migraine. The next, we'll just see you during the week." During the week, he never came. I only started seeing him when I called, and when I called, I could hear her voice whispering in the background. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was clear. Annoyance. One day I dared to bring it up. "Honey, I feel like we don't spend time together anymore." His response chilled me. "Mom, I'm not 12 years old anymore. I have a life, my girlfriend. You can't expect me to be attached to your hip forever." Attached to my hip? I only asked for one Sunday a month. But the worst part came 3 months after meeting her. I casually mentioned during dinner that Ethan would eventually inherit the business. It was my way of including Chloe in our future plans. She leaned forward, interested in the conversation for the very first time. "Is it already on paper? I mean, legally established." "Not yet, but he is my only son. Everything of mine will be his. Right. Pause. But in this day and age, with so many inheritance issues, it would be safer to have it documented. Don't you think, babe?" Ethan nodded. "You're right, Mom. We could go see a lawyer." I noticed how Chloe's eyes gleamed differently when she talked about money. Like a cat watching a mouse. I shared my concerns with Martha at the shop. She stopped sewing and looked at me seriously. "Eleanor, that girl doesn't love you. She wants what you have." "You are exaggerating. Am I? Why does she measure the walls with her eyes every time she comes over?" Why does she ask how much this or that is worth? I had no answer. The fight between Ethan and me erupted when I made the mistake of telling him I thought Chloe was a gold digger. "You're jealous," he yelled. He had never yelled at me. "You can't stand that I have a girlfriend. You want to control me like you always do. Ethan, I just want to protect you. I don't need your protection. I need you to trust my decisions." He stormed out, slamming the door. He didn't come back for 2 weeks. When he returned, it was worse. He brought Chloe without warning. I was in sweatpants and an old t-shirt, my hair tied up in a messy ponytail. The house wasn't clean. Chloe greeted me with a kiss on the cheek, but I saw her nose wrinkle slightly, like she smelled something unpleasant. I found them in the living room measuring the walls. Literally, Chloe had a tape measure. "What are you doing?" "Just curious," she said with that smile I was beginning to hate. "This house has so much potential if it gets modernized. Imagine it. White walls, light hardwood floors, bigger windows. I like how it is. Of course, it's your house." But her tone said the exact opposite. I asked Ethan to speak with me alone. He exploded. "She's my fiancée. She's going to be family. Why do you treat her like an invader?" Because she was one. But I couldn't say it without him accusing me of being jealous, controlling, and toxic. I started feeling like a stranger in my own home, like I was the unwanted guest. Martha noticed my sadness. "Ma'am, that girl is poisoning him against you. I see it in his eyes when he looks at you. They used to shine with love. Now they shine with contempt." She was right. But admitting it meant accepting that I was losing my son, and I wasn't ready for that truth yet. What I didn't know was that Chloe had already started weaving her web, and that I, naive as I was about to discover just how far she was willing to go to take everything I had built. Ethan's transformation was so gradual I almost didn't notice it, like watching a child grow. One day they are little, and suddenly they are a stranger. It started with words. Little corrections. Chloe would slip into conversations like someone adding sugar to coffee. "Babe, don't you think it's a little controlling that your mom calls every day?" "Eleanor, I understand you worry, but Ethan is an adult. He needs space." And my personal favorite, "It's just that you come from a different generation. Relationships are more independent now." Ethan started repeating those phrases as if they were his own. "Mom, you are very intense. Mom, I need my space. Mom, not everything is about you. About me?" I had spent 35 years making everything about him, but the most effective poison was the one Chloe spread in private. I discovered her technique by accident. I called one afternoon to ask if he was coming for dinner. Ethan answered, but he didn't hang up properly. I heard the whole conversation. "It was your mom," he said. I figured, what did she want now? Chloe's tone dripped with annoyance. "Asking if I'm coming to dinner." Ethan. A dramatic sigh. "Do you see what I mean? She has you on an invisible leash. You can't even plan your week without her weighing in. She just wants to see me." "Sure, because her entire life revolves around you. Doesn't that seem sick to you? A woman her age with no friends, no partner, no life of her own. Just you." Silence from Ethan. "I'm not saying you shouldn't love her," Chloe continued, her voice soft and understanding. "Just that a relationship like that isn't healthy for either of you." I hung up before I could hear any more. My hands were shaking. Sick? She called a mother wanting to see her son sick? But the worst part was realizing that Ethan didn't contradict her. The following weeks were a slow torture. Every interaction with my son felt contaminated. I could tell he was evaluating me, weighing my words, looking for signs of that toxicity Chloe had planted in his head. I asked about his job. I was being nosy. I offered to cook his favorite meal. I was manipulating him with food. I mentioned I missed him. I was being dramatic. I couldn't do anything right. One Saturday I came home earlier than planned. A client canceled her fitting at the last minute. I opened the door and found them, Ethan and Chloe, in my living room. She was holding a notebook, taking notes. He was holding a measuring tape. "What are you two doing?" Chloe didn't even look embarrassed. "Taking measurements." Ethan was showing me the house. "You already know the house." "Yes, but I've never looked at it with a professional eye." Smile. "I work in marketing, remember? I have to think in terms of space, Flow, potential. Potential for what? For when it's ours. She said it so casually, so naturally. My blood boiled. This house is mine. For now, Chloe muttered, just loud enough for me to hear. Excuse me. Ethan intervened quickly. Mom, was Chloe just planning my funeral? The words came out bitter. Deciding what to change when I'm gone? You're overreacting. Ethan stood up. See? This is exactly what Chloe says. Everything is a drama with you. There it was. The phrase Chloe had planted, now coming out of my son's mouth. Then forgive me for interrupting your home renovation project. In my house, which I paid for with my hard work, Chloe gathered her things with studied calmness. Ethan, we should go. Your mom needs to process her emotions. Process my emotions? Like I was the irrational one. After they left, I sat on the same sofa Chloe had criticized. The sofa I bought when Ethan was 2. The sofa where I used to rock him when he had nightmares. The sofa she was already mentally replacing. I called Martha. She arrived in 20 minutes with pastries and coffee. Enough is enough, Eleanor. That woman is destroying you, and you are letting her. What can I do? If I confront her, I lose Ethan. You are already losing him. Martha took my hands. But there is a difference between losing him by giving up and losing him by fighting back. At least in the second scenario, you keep your dignity. She was right, but fear paralyzed me. Fear of ending up alone. Fear of Ethan hating me. Fear of confirming that 35 years of sacrifice would end like this, being the villain in my own story. Investigate her, Martha suggested. Something tells me that girl has a past, and if she does, you need to know. 2 days later, I hired a private investigator. $3,000 that I pulled from my personal savings. I need to know who Chloe Vance really is. The investigator, a 50-year-old man with a tired face, nodded. Give me 2 weeks. They were the longest 2 weeks of my life. Meanwhile, Chloe tightened the noose. She convinced Ethan to skip my birthday. It's just a number, babe. You can celebrate another day. She canceled the Sunday visits. We need time for us. She even got Ethan to change his phone passcode. I used to know his code for emergencies. Not anymore. She was erasing me. Slowly, methodically. Chloe was erasing me from my son's life. And when the investigator finally called, his first sentence made my blood run cold. Mrs. Sterling, I found something, and you are not going to like it at all. The manila envelope arrived on a Tuesday. 10 days of investigation condensed into 20 pages that destroyed any remaining illusions I had about Chloe Vance. But before opening it, I let Ethan give me the news he had been wanting to share for days. Mom, we're getting married. His eyes shined with genuine excitement. The same excitement I felt when Thomas proposed to me 40 years ago, in 4 months. Chloe already has everything planned. Of course she did. We want a wedding at the Botanical Gardens. You've seen the venue, right? Where your client's daughter got married last year? I did know it. $40,000 just to rent the space. Not counting food, music, flowers. It's expensive, honey. I know, that's why. He paused. Chloe and I thought you could contribute 60%. You're my mom. I'm your only son. And well, you have the business. There it was. The first official request for money. $40,000, Ethan. That's more than a year's profit from the shop. But it's my wedding. Don't you want it to be special? I wanted to say no. I wanted to scream at him that Chloe was a gold digger. That she was using me. That this was a trap. But the manila envelope was still sealed on my desk. I needed proof before accusing her. Let me think about it. His face hardened. Chloe said you'd say that. She said you always find excuses not to support me when it really matters. I bit my tongue until I tasted blood. Give me a week. After he left, I opened the envelope. First page. A photo of Chloe with a man in his 60s. Both smiling, hugging. On the back, the investigator's note. Richard Belmont, 61 years old. Owner of Belmont Hardware. Engaged to Chloe Vance. March 2022 to September 2022. Second page. A police report filed by Richard Belmont against Chloe Vance for document forgery and fraud. The accusation: Chloe forged Richard's signature to transfer 2 properties into her name, a lake house in Lake Geneva and a commercial storefront in the West Loop. Third page. Out-of-court settlement. Richard dropped the charges in exchange for Chloe returning the properties and accepting $50,000 to disappear quietly from his life. The investigator had even obtained text message transcripts. Chloe writing to a friend, "This old man has more properties than common sense. By the time he realizes it, I'll have enough to be totally independent." I felt nauseous. And now Ethan was her new target? I kept reading. Chloe had resigned from her job at the agency 3 months ago, not for the reasons she told Ethan, seeking better opportunities, but because she was fired for falsifying client reports. She had credit card debt totaling $60,000. 3 different banks were coming after her. This marriage was not for love. It was her financial lifeline. I stuffed everything into my bag and drove straight to Ethan's apartment. He lived in a place where I had helped pay the down payment. $30,000 2 years ago. I knocked. Chloe opened the door, surprised to see me but quick to fix her smile. "Eleanor, what a surprise. Ethan is just. I need to talk to him, now." Something in my tone alerted her. She stepped aside. Ethan came out of his room. "Mom? What's going on?" I placed the envelope on the coffee table. "You need to see this." Chloe turned pale. "What is that?" "Your past." Over the next 15 minutes, I watched Ethan's face shift from skepticism to confusion and then to doubt. He read every page, looked at every photo. The text messages, the police report, the settlement. Chloe tried to explain. It was a misunderstanding. Richard was a controlling man. You forged his signature?" Ethan asked, his voice trembling. "He promised me those properties. Yes or no?" Silence. I looked at my son. I saw the exact moment the truth hit him. His shoulders slumped, his eyes filled with tears. But then Chloe did what she did best: manipulate. She fell to her knees in front of him, crying. "Babe, that was years ago. I was a different person. I was desperate, scared. But with you, I'm different. You changed me. Please, don't let the past destroy our future." Ethan looked at her. Then he looked at me, and he said the words that destroyed me more than anything at the restaurant. "Mom, this is low. Even for you." "What?" "Fabricating evidence. Hiring private investigators. All because you can't stand to see me happy." "Ethan, I didn't fabricate anything. She is the one who forged this," he yelled, pointing at the documents. "You're jealous. You always have been. That's why my dad stopped." He didn't finish the sentence. "Finish the sentence," I whispered. "That's why my dad spent so much time out of the house. To get away from you, so he wouldn't go crazy with your need for control." The world stopped spinning. My husband, the man who loved me until his dying breath, the man who died buying medicine for this ungrateful child who was now using him to hurt me. "Get out of my house," Ethan said. "My son, get out." Chloe looked at me, and in her eyes I saw something that chilled me to the bone: triumph. I left that apartment knowing I had just lost my son. But what I didn't know was that Chloe was already planning her next move, and that in 3 days I would discover exactly how deep her ambition ran. 3 days after the worst confrontation of our lives, Ethan showed up at my door, not alone, with Chloe and a man in a gray suit carrying a leather briefcase. "Mom, we need to talk business." Business. My son called me Mom but wanted to talk business. I let them in. The man in the suit introduced himself. Accountant Robert Hayes. "Nice to meet you. A friend of Chloe's." Of course, they sat in my living room, in my house, while Chloe looked at the green velvet sofa with that familiar expression, calculating how much she'd get when she sold it. "Mr. Hayes reviewed your finances," Ethan started. Like he had the right. Like my finances belonged to him. And he has a proposal that benefits all of us. "Mrs. Sterling," the accountant interjected, opening his briefcase. "Your business is generating excellent numbers. $15,000 a month is impressive for a tailoring shop." "An atelier," I corrected. And yes, I work hard, exactly. That's why my suggestion is to optimize. Form a partnership with your son, 50-50. That way taxes are distributed, risks are shared, and Ethan can help you manage things. 50-50. Half of everything I had built alone. And what do I get out of that? Ethan leaned forward. Mom, think about it. You work so much. You're 67 years old. You should be resting, not hauling fabric and dealing with clients until 10 o'clock at night. I like my job, but you're killing yourself. With the partnership, I could handle the administrative side. You would just design, which is what you love. It sounded reasonable, dangerously reasonable. Besides, Chloe added with a soft voice, he's your son. He's eventually going to inherit everything, right? Why not give him the chance to learn now, while you're still here to guide him? There it was, the bait wrapped in logic. I need to think about it. Ethan's face hardened. Think about it? It's a generous offer, Mom. Generous for whom, Ethan? I put 35 years of my life into that business. You put, what? Nothing? I'm your son. He stood up. After everything you sacrificed for me, according to you, now it turns out you don't trust me. It's not about trust. Chloe was right. His voice turned icy. You don't trust me. You never have. That's why you control everything. That's why you can't let go. Accountant Hayes cleared his throat uncomfortably. Chloe put her hand on Ethan's arm, calming him, playing the peacekeeper. The reasonable one? Eleanor, she said, I understand your reservations. It's natural. But Ethan and I just want what's best for you, for everyone. When she said everyone, her eyes gleamed, because everyone meant her. I will give you my answer in a week. After they left, I stared at the documents the accountant had left behind. Fully drafted contracts. All they needed was my signature, ready to go, as if my acceptance was guaranteed. I called Martha. When I told her, she exploded. She can't be that shameless. Do not sign anything, Eleanor. I won't. But I need legal counsel. Someone who is on my side. The next day, I visited Mr. Davis. 65 years old, honest. He had known me since I opened the shop. I had tailored suits for his 4 sons. I showed him everything. The investigators' report on Chloe, the contracts they wanted me to sign, bank transfers from the last few months. He put on his glasses and reviewed every page with the meticulousness of a surgeon. Eleanor, legally everything is in your name, your house, your business. As long as you don't sign a partnership agreement or a new will, no one can take it from you. But, he put the papers down. If you form a partnership, things change. Ethan would have a legal right to 50%. If you die, Chloe, as his wife, would have a right to his share. What if I get married? Depends on the prenuptial agreement. A separation of assets would protect you. But at your age, he looked at me affectionately. I don't think that's an option. No, I just wanted to know. He kept looking through the files. Suddenly, he stopped. Does Ethan have a key to your office? Yes, why? Because there are inconsistencies here. He pointed at some bank statements. Someone has been looking through your files, and not just looking, copying. I felt a pit in my stomach. We drove to my office at the shop. Mr. Davis checked every drawer, every file cabinet. He found copies of property deeds, property appraisals, bank statements, everything organized in a hidden folder behind some old fabric catalogs. This wasn't here a month ago, I whispered. Who else has access? Only Ethan. And by extension, Chloe. They are building a case, Mr. Davis said, documenting everything you have, preparing for. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. I sat in my office chair, where I had spent thousands of hours designing, calculating, building my empire of threads and fabrics. And now my own son was cataloging that empire like it was an estate sale inventory. What do I do? I asked. And I hated how small my voice sounded. Protect yourself. Now. Today. Mr. Davis pulled out his phone. We're going to make some preventative changes. A new will, protection clauses, and we are going to document everything that is happening. For the first time in weeks, I felt something resembling hope. I wasn't alone. I wasn't defenseless. But I wasn't prepared for what I would discover 3 days later, because the deepest betrayal hadn't even happened yet. And when it did, it would make me wish I had never heard the conversation that changed everything. Now the story goes back to the beginning, to the Golden Terrace restaurant, to the words that shattered the last shred of illusion I had about my son. After walking out of the restaurant with my husband's watch still in my bag, after hearing Ethan call me pathetic, after walking away with my back straight while my heart broke into a million pieces, I got home. The 2-story house in Oak Park. The house I bought with Thomas 40 years ago. The house where I raised a son who was now ashamed of me. I sat in my room. I didn't turn on the lights. I just sat there in the dark, holding the blue velvet case. I opened the watch. The hands pointed to 3:15, the exact time my life broke in two the first time. Thomas, I whispered to the empty room. Did I do something wrong? Where did I mess up? For the first time in 35 years, I considered giving up, giving them everything, signing whatever they wanted, disappearing from their lives since I was clearly a burden. The doorbell rang at midnight. Ethan. He had a key, but he was knocking like a guilty visitor. I opened the door. He looked terrible. Bloodshot eyes, messy hair, wrinkled shirt. Mom, I'm sorry. I am so sorry. It was the alcohol. It was nerves. Chloe was anxious about meeting my friends, and I wanted everything to be perfect and excuses. Nothing but excuses. Do you really think I'm pathetic? I interrupted. Silence. A silence that lasted for years. No, Mom, it's just that. Chloe says, and in the moment, with the alcohol, It came out. It wasn't an apology. It was a confirmation. I understand. Do you forgive me? I looked at him. I saw the 2-year-old boy crying because his dad didn't come home. I saw the 7-year-old who hugged me and told me I was his superhero. I saw the teenager who defended my cooking to his friends who wanted pizza. I saw the young man who cried on my shoulder when he was rejected from his first job. Where was that Ethan now? Good night, son. I closed the door. I heard him on the other side, breathing heavily. He called my name 2 more times. I didn't answer. When his footsteps finally faded away, I allowed myself to cry. I cried for the son I had lost. I cried for the 35 years I gave without asking for anything in return. I cried for Thomas, who would have been devastated to see what his son had become. But amidst those tears, something else was being born. Something cold, something strong. Martha arrived at 7 in the morning. I gave her a key years ago for emergencies. She saw my face and didn't ask questions. She just put coffee and a pastry on the table. What happened? I told her everything. The dinner, the words, the public humiliation. That boy needs a lesson, Martha said, her eyes burning with anger. And you need to protect yourself. Right now. She was right. Crying changed nothing. Waiting for his genuine repentance was naive. It was time to act. Call Mr. Davis, I told her. And Sarah and Rachel. I need witnesses to everything that has happened. Martha smiled. Now that's my Eleanor speaking. The next few days were a whirlwind of preparation. Mr. Davis drafted a new will with ironclad protection clauses that not even Chloe's best lawyer could break. Sarah and Rachel wrote detailed statements regarding the conversations they had overheard between Chloe and her friends at the shop. I installed security cameras in the house. For safety, I told Ethan when he asked. He didn't even question it. He was too busy planning his wedding. But I needed the final piece, the definitive proof of Chloe's true intentions. And I got it in the most unexpected way. I went to an appointment to take measurements for a wedding dress at a boutique in the Gold Coast. The bride was a regular client. While I waited my turn, I heard familiar voices in the adjacent fitting room. Chloe and her mother. Did you find out about the house yet? The older woman's voice was raspy. The old lady still has everything in her name. Chloe sounded frustrated. But as soon as we get married, Ethan is the direct heir. What if she leaves you nothing while she's alive? That's why I need Ethan to convince her to form the partnership. Once he has 50% in his name, she legally can't take it away. And then, laughter. Evil laughter. Later, when the house and business are appraised and documented in Ethan's name, We convince her that she can't handle so much anymore, that she needs to rest. A nursing home? I've seen some really good ones for $8,000 a month. With what that property is worth, we can open our own marketing agency. Ethan wouldn't even have to work if he doesn't want to. What if she refuses? She won't. Ethan does what I say. And if things get complicated? Pause. I've been documenting all her quirks, how she calls every day, how she shows up unannounced, how she tries to control Ethan's finances. With a good lawyer, we can prove senile dementia, mental incapacity. And then, Ethan would have legal power of attorney over everything. The adjacent fitting room fell silent. Then, more laughter. I raised a smart daughter. I learned from the best. I stepped out of the bathroom where I had been taking refuge. I met them in the hallway. Chloe turned white as a sheet. Eleanor, we were just talking about a soap opera, right? I smiled. Cold. Calculated. What an interesting plot. Chloe tried to recover. Exactly. It's just very, save your lies for someone who believes you. I left that boutique with something much more valuable than any dress. Certainty. There were no more doubts. There was no more room for the benefit of the doubt. Chloe didn't love my son. She saw him as a ladder to my money, and she saw me as a temporary obstacle to remove. But what Chloe didn't know was that she had just declared war on the wrong woman, and that I was no longer the desperate mother begging for her son's love. I was a woman who had just found something far more powerful than love, survival. That night I didn't cry. The tears had run dry. In their place remained something far more useful, clarity. I sat in my office at the shop with a fresh notebook and a pen. At the top of the page I wrote, Protection Plan. Mr. Davis arrived at 9 o'clock, as we had agreed. I told him what I heard in the fitting room. He took off his glasses and cleaned them slowly. Eleanor, this is serious. Very serious. They are planning not just to rob you, but to lock you away. I know. Did you record the conversation? No, but I have witnesses to her character. I have the investigator's report. I have the copies we found in my office. It's not enough for a trial, but it's enough to protect you. He pulled documents from his briefcase. I did what you asked. An ironclad trust. He explained it to me. The house and business were put into an irrevocable trust. Ethan would be a beneficiary, but with strict conditions. He couldn't sell for 10 years. He had to work in the business for 5 years before having any administrative control. And most importantly, his future wife would have no right to the inheritance. If he gets married with shared assets, his spouse cannot touch the trust. It is yours until you die. And then it passes to Ethan with all these restrictions. What if she tries to declare me mentally incompetent? That's why we included a special clause. To declare you incompetent, they would need evaluations from 3 independent doctors, not just one that Chloe could pay off. And in the meantime, Martha has temporary power of attorney to manage things on your behalf, if anything were to happen to you. Martha, sitting in the corner, nodded. Nobody is taking anything from you as long as I'm breathing, ma'am. I signed the documents. Every signature was an act of war, but I needed more. A full audit of the business. I told the accountant Mr. Davis brought. I want to know if Ethan has touched anything beyond those copies. The audit took 3 days. The results made me sick. Ethan had withdrawn $20,000 over 3 months. Small transfers, $1,000 here, $2,000 there, using the business account I gave him access to for emergencies. He had forged receipts from supposed vendors that didn't exist. My son was a thief. We have the proof, the accountant said. Transfers, dates, account numbers. Everything leads to his personal account. Can I press charges? Mr. Davis shook his head. He's your son. Technically, he has access to that account because you gave it to him. Legally, it's a gray area, but morally, he left the sentence unfinished. I didn't need to report him to the police. I needed him to know that I knew. I contacted Chloe's ex-fiancé, Richard Belmont. He agreed to meet me at a discreet coffee shop in Chicago. He was a 61-year-old man, gray hair, impeccable suit. He looked tired, defeated. Mrs. Sterling, when your lawyer contacted me, I thought it was a cruel joke, but if Chloe is doing to your son what she did to me, he shook his head. Someone has to stop her. He told me everything. How Chloe seduced him at a business conference. How she earned his trust in 6 months. How she gained access to his documents. The forged signatures. The transferred properties. I loved her, he said, his voice cracking. I was going to marry her. And it was all a lie. She just wanted my money. Would you testify, if necessary? Gladly. That woman cannot keep destroying families. I walked out of that coffee shop with my final piece. A credible witness with legal documents proving Chloe's pattern of behavior. That night, Martha, Sarah, Rachel, and I sat in the shop after closing. 4 women who had seen this business grow from scratch. I need you to testify, I told them. To document every suspicious conversation you've heard. Every comment. Every gesture. Sarah spoke first. Ma'am, I heard her asking her friend how much the industrial sewing machines were worth. She was calculating the value of the inventory. Rachel continued. I heard her say on the phone that the old lady wouldn't last long with her diabetes. I didn't even know you had diabetes until she mentioned it, Sarah added. Because I never told Ethan, I explained. I didn't want to worry him. But Chloe went through my medical documents without permission. Martha clenched her fist. That viper needs a lesson she will never forget. And she will get one. But I need to do this right. One single opportunity. I spent the next few days compiling everything. Documents, statements, phone call recordings, legal in my state with one-party consent, photos of the copies Ethan made of my files, the investigator's report on Chloe, Richard's testimony. It was a 50-page file. A file that proved exactly who Chloe Vance was and what she had done to my son. The final step, dinner. The perfect invitation. The perfect setting. The perfect moment for all the actors in this drama to come face to face. I called Ethan. My voice sounded sweet, reconciling. Son, I've been thinking. You're right, I've been difficult. Can we have dinner? You, Chloe, and me? I have something important to tell you both. I could hear his relief on the other end of the line. Really, Mom? Really. Come over on Saturday, 7 o'clock in the evening. What are you going to tell us? I smiled. It's a surprise, but I think you'll like it. He thought I was going to sign the partnership agreement. Chloe thought she had won. But what neither of them knew was that Saturday would not be a celebration. It would be a trial. And I would be the judge, jury, and executioner. On Wednesday, 3 days before the dinner, I received an unexpected call. Mrs. Eleanor Sterling? A formal male voice. Yes, this is the manager at Metropolitan Bank. We have a commercial loan application under your business name, Sterling Atelier. We need to confirm a few details. My blood ran cold. I didn't apply for any loan. Silence on the other end. The application is signed by you and your son, Ethan Sterling, as co-applicant, for $50,000. My son is not a co-applicant on anything, and that is not my signature. Ma'am, I understand your concern. Could you come to the bank tomorrow? We need to clear this up. I went with Mr. Davis. The manager showed us the application. The signature was almost perfect. Almost. But I knew my own signature better than anyone. It's a forgery, Mr. Davis said. Who submitted this application? The manager checked his system. An Ethan Sterling. He came in 2 days ago with all the business documents. Bank statements, deeds, appraisals, the copies we found in my office. He had used them to apply for a loan in my name. Did you approve the loan? It's still under review. Luckily, we called to verify first. Reject it and keep all the documentation. We will need it. We left the bank, and I sat in my car, unable to take my hands off the steering wheel. My son had tried to steal $50,000 from me. It wasn't an emergency loan. It was theft with forged documents. This is a federal crime, Mr. Davis said. He could go to prison. I am not going to report my son, but you can use it as evidence. He was right. One more thing for the file. That afternoon, I continued with my normal routine at the shop. I smiled at the clients. I pinned hems. I designed a sweet 16 dress for a 10-year client's daughter, but inside, I was documenting every second, every conversation, every movement. Ethan stopped by the shop on Thursday just to say hello. I saw him walk straight to my office when he thought I wasn't looking. The cameras I installed recorded everything going through drawers, searching for more documents, taking pictures of papers with his cell phone. I didn't say anything. I just saved the footage. On Friday, Chloe called. Sweet, charming. Eleanor, I just wanted to thank you for the invitation tomorrow. Ethan is so happy that you are finally opening up to our relationship. He is my son. I want what's best for him, and he will have it. I promise you. A pause. Can I ask what you're going to announce? It's a surprise. A good surprise? Depends on how you look at it. I heard her breathing on the other end, calculating, wondering. We'll see you tomorrow, she finally said. That night I prepared my house, not for a celebration, for a war. Martha arrived early to help me. We set the dining room table with the white linen tablecloth I only used on special occasions. 8 settings. 8 people who would participate in this drama. Are you sure about this, ma'am? Martha asked while arranging the silverware. Completely. Sarah and Rachel arrived at 6 o'clock. Nervous, but determined. All 3 had agreed to be my witnesses. More than that, my allies. Mr. Davis arrived at 6:30 with his briefcase full of documents. And at 6:45, Richard Belmont, Chloe's ex-fiancé, arrived. He looked tense but resolute. Mrs. Sterling, I hope this helps spare your son the pain I went through. Thank you for coming. Everything was ready. The documents organized. The witnesses in position. The recordings prepared. At exactly 7 o'clock, the doorbell rang. I opened the door. Ethan and Chloe were there, smiling. He was carrying a bottle of wine. She had a bouquet of red roses. Mom, Ethan said, hugging me. Thank you for this. I let him hug me. He smelled like the same cologne I gave him for his birthday. My son, my boy. The one who was about to receive the hardest lesson of his life. I led them into the living room. When they walked in and saw everyone present, Ethan stopped dead in his tracks. Mom, what is this? Chloe was already pale. She had recognized Richard. It's a family meeting, son. Have a seat. Who are all these people? Witnesses, lawyers, and someone who has very interesting information about your fiancé. Chloe took a step back. Ethan, we should go. Nobody is leaving, Mr. Davis said, his voice calm but firm. Not until you hear everything. Ethan looked at me. For the first time in months, I saw fear in his eyes. What is going on? I sat in my chair. The same one where I received the news of Thomas's death. The same one where I decided to build my empire. The same one from which I would now defend what was mine. Sit down, I repeated. It's time you knew the truth about the woman you planned to marry. And so began the night that would change everything. The night the masks would fall and the truth would come to light. The night a mother would stop begging for love and start demanding respect. Ethan and Chloe sat down. They had no choice. Mr. Davis blocked the door. Martha, Sarah, and Rachel formed a silent but intimidating semicircle. I started slowly, like peeling an onion, layer by layer. 2 months ago, I hired a private investigator. I needed to know who Chloe Vance really was. I placed the first document on the coffee table. The photo of Chloe with Richard Belmont. Ethan, meet Richard, your future wife's ex-fiancé. Or should I say, ex-victim. Ethan looked at the photo, then at Richard, then at Chloe. Babe, I explained to you that I had relationships before, Chloe began. She didn't finish. My voice cut through the air like scissors. Richard, could you tell my son what your ex-fiancé did? Richard cleared his throat. Chloe and I met in March of 2022. I fell in love. I proposed in June. She accepted. He paused. In August, I discovered she had forged my signature to transfer 2 of my properties into her name. A lake house in Lake Geneva. A commercial space in the West Loop. Total value, $500,000. The color drained from Ethan's face. Did you press charges? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. I was going to. She offered to return the properties and disappear in exchange for $50,000. I accepted because I just wanted her out of my life. I placed the second document down, the original police report and the out-of-court settlement. Chloe stood up. This is ridiculous. That was years ago. 2 years, I finished. 2 years in which you have been looking for your next victim, and you found him in my son. You have no right. Chloe screamed. I have every right. He is my son. Ethan picked up the documents with shaking hands. He read every line. I saw the exact moment reality hit him. Chloe, is this true? She changed tactics. Instant tears. Babe, I was a different person. Richard was controlling, abusive. I was just trying to protect myself. By forging documents? Ethan's voice sounded strange, like he was speaking from very far away. I pushed forward. There was no time for her drama. That's not all. Sarah, could you share what you heard? Sarah stepped forward, nervous but firm. 3 weeks ago, Miss Chloe was at the shop waiting for Ethan. She was on the phone with someone named Sophie. She literally said, "My idiot boyfriend is convincing his mom to form the partnership. Once she signs, half the business is legally ours," Rachel continued. I heard her say that the old lady wouldn't last long with her diabetes. I didn't understand until I found out that Mrs. Sterling has diabetes, and she never told Ethan. Ethan looked at me. You have diabetes? Type 2. Controlled with medication. I didn't worry you because it's under control, but Chloe knew because she went through my medical documents. Without permission. Martha placed the photos we took of the copies found in my office on the table. These copies were made by Ethan of Mrs. Sterling's private documents. Deeds, bank statements, appraisals, everything. Mom, Ethan tried to speak. Just what? You were just planning to rob me? You just tried to take out a $50,000 loan in my name without me knowing? His face turned ashen. How? The bank called me to verify. Your forged signature wasn't as good as you thought. I placed the rejected loan application on the table. That, my son, is a federal crime. You could go to prison for 3 to 8 years. The silence was so thick you could cut it. Chloe tried to leave. Mr. Davis blocked her path. We aren't finished, I said. The best part is still to come. I pulled out my phone. I connected the audio to the living room speaker, and I played the recording I had made in the boutique fitting room. Chloe's voice filled the room. Once he has 50% in his name, she legally can't take it away. Her mother's voice. A nursing home? Chloe again. I've seen some really good ones for $8,000 a month. Ethan stood up. Staggering, like every word was a physical blow. With what that property is worth, we can open our own agency. Ethan wouldn't even have to work if he doesn't want to. The recording continued. Every word was a nail in the coffin of their relationship. When it ended, the silence was deafening. Ethan turned to Chloe. His eyes were filled with tears. Tell me that's not your voice. Chloe opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Babe, It was taken out of context. Taken out of context? Ethan laughed. A bitter, broken laugh. Planning to put my mother in a nursing home is taken out of context? Your mother is toxic. She controls you. She manipulates you. She raised me alone. She paid for my college. She bought my car. She gave me everything. His voice broke. And I stole from her. I lied to her. I called her pathetic. He dropped onto the sofa, his head in his hands. Chloe tried to touch him. He pulled away as if she burned him. Don't touch me. Don't ever touch me again. Ethan, please, give me the ring. What? The engagement ring. Give it back to me. Now. Chloe clenched her fists. No, give it to me, or I call the police with all this evidence of fraud. For the first time that night, Chloe showed her true face. No tears, no sweetness, just pure fury. You are useless. A mama's boy who is never going to grow up. That's why you are alone, Ethan. That's why your father. She couldn't finish. Ethan got up so fast his chair fell over. Mr. Davis and Richard grabbed him before he could reach her. What were you going to say about my father? His voice was dangerously low. Chloe smiled. Cruel. That he got himself killed in that accident so he wouldn't have to come back and see you or your pathetic mother. The world stopped. Nobody breathed. And then I did something I hadn't done in 35 years. I showed him a photo I kept in my wallet. Thomas, 2 days before he died, holding a 2-year-old Ethan, both smiling. On the back, in Thomas's handwriting, my family, my reason for living. My husband died going to buy medicine for this little boy who had pneumonia, I said, my voice breaking but firm. He worked 18 hours a day to give us the best. He loved us so much that he worked himself to death, literally. I handed the photo to Ethan. He looked at it, and finally, he broke. He cried like he hadn't cried since he was 5 years old. He understood that his dad never came back, and I let him cry, because some lessons are only learned through pain. Chloe left that night screaming threats. "You're going to pay for this. My lawyer is going to destroy you. Eleanor, you are a manipulative witch." I showed her the complete file, 50 pages of evidence. "Chloe, if you try any legal action, this goes straight to the district attorney. Fraud, forgery of documents, attempted extortion. We are talking 3 to 8 years in federal prison. Choose wisely." She left, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. Ethan stayed, devastated, broken, sitting on the sofa where he spent his childhood watching cartoons while I sewed. The others left discreetly. Martha squeezed my hand before walking out. "You did the right thing, Eleanor." When we were alone, the silence was heavy. "Mom," his voice sounded like a little boy's. "Forgive me. Please, forgive me. What have I done?" I didn't run to hug him. I didn't comfort him immediately. I needed him to feel the full weight of his actions. "You were cruel, Ethan. You humiliated me publicly. You robbed me. You let that woman turn you into someone I don't recognize. I know. You called me pathetic. You said your father ran away from me. I was lying. God, I was so wrong." The tears kept falling. "She made me feel like you were the problem, that you were controlling, toxic, and I believed her because it was easier than admitting I was betraying you. Why did you take that money? Why did you try for the loan?" A long silence. "Chloe has debt, $60,000. She told me that if I didn't help her, she would lose everything, that it would ruin our credit after we got married. I just wanted to fix it. With my money, without asking you. I was going to pay it back." "With what? With the money you make?" "Ethan, you make $4,000 a month. It would take you years to pay that back." He lowered his head. "I didn't think. I just," she cried. "And she told me she loved me, and that together we would figure it out. And she manipulated you, professionally, because that is what she does." I showed him the trust. I explained every clause. His eyes widened when he read the conditions. "Can I still inherit? If you meet these conditions, you will work in the shop. Not as a manager, as an apprentice. You will learn the business from the bottom up, just like I did. You will pack fabrics. You will make deliveries. You will take measurements. You will sweep the floor if necessary. Mom, I have my job. You quit, or you lose the inheritance. You choose." His mouth opened, closed. "The $20,000 you took, you will pay back from your salary, $1,000 a month. But my rent? You can live here. Your room is exactly the same. Or you can find something cheaper. But that money gets paid back." "I understand. You will go to therapy. Individual therapy. You need to understand how you allowed someone to turn you into this." He nodded. The tears were still falling. "And you will earn my respect again, day by day, decision by decision. Will you ever be able to forgive me?" I sat next to him. I took his hand. The same hand I held when he took his first steps. "I already forgave you, my son. But forgiveness doesn't erase the pain. It only makes it bearable." "Why?" he sobbed. "After everything I did, why?" "Because you are my son, and a mother forgives the unforgivable. But that doesn't mean she forgets." He cried on my shoulder just like when he was a little boy. And I let him. Because sometimes love means letting someone break so they can rebuild themselves stronger. I showed him the letters. The ones Thomas wrote to me before he died. "Eleanor, my love, every day I spend with you and our son is a gift. I will work until my last breath to give you the life you deserve. I love you more than my own life." Ethan read every letter. He saw his father's love written in faded ink. "He never ran away from us," I whispered. "He always ran toward us." "I know. God, I know." Ethan pressed the letters against his chest. "How could I say that? Because you let someone else write your story. Now you have to get your own voice back. That night, Ethan slept in his old room, the one I had kept exactly the same for 30 years. His bed, his books, his school trophies. I stayed awake, looking at the stars from my window. I had won. I protected my assets. I unmasked Chloe. I set boundaries. But I didn't feel triumphant. I felt exhausted. A deep exhaustion from 35 years of fighting alone. Martha was right. I had recovered my dignity. But the price had been seeing my son shattered. Was it worth it? I looked at the photo of Thomas on my nightstand. His kind eyes looked back at me. I did the right thing, didn't I? I asked the silence. And in that silence, I found my answer. Yes. Because teaching my son that love without respect is just a beautiful lie was the most important lesson I could ever give him. The days following that confrontation were strange. Ethan quit his job at the marketing agency. I saw him arrive on Monday at 7 in the morning at the shop, wearing comfortable clothes and with puffy eyes from crying so much. Martha put him to work immediately. You are going to organize the warehouse, all the fabrics by color and type, and then you'll do inventory. He didn't protest. He just nodded and started working. Clients recognized him. Mrs. Sterling's son? What is he doing carrying boxes? Learning, he would answer, his voice low. I watched him from my office, seeing him sweat organizing rolls of fabric, pricking his fingers counting needles. Watching Sarah correct him when he misclassified the sizes. It was humiliating for him. I know, a 32-year-old man, with a college degree doing manual labor, while his former colleagues posted photos of their corporate offices on social media. But it was necessary. One afternoon in the second week, Ethan came up to my office after closing. Can I talk to you? Have a seat. He looked exhausted. He had an ink stain on his cheek and sawdust in his hair. I started therapy, like you asked. And the therapist asked me a question I couldn't answer. He paused. He asked me, when did you stop being yourself? I waited. I don't know, Mom. I look back and I see how I changed. Little shifts. Chloe would suggest your call was too frequent, and I accepted it. She'd say your advice was invasive, and I nodded. Little by little, I stopped trusting my own judgment and started seeing everything through her eyes. And what do you see now? I see a woman who sacrificed everything for me, who worked 18 hours a day so I could have an education, who turned down marriage proposals to focus on me, who, his voice broke, who deserved a better son than the one I was. I didn't contradict him, because he was right. The therapist says Chloe used alienation tactics, that she isolated me from you strategically, that she exploited my insecurities. What insecurities? I felt like I was never enough for you, that you compared me to Dad, that everything you did was a silent reproach for everything I failed to do. His words hit me hard. Had I done that? Had I put so much pressure on him that I made him vulnerable to someone like Chloe? My son, if I ever made you feel that way. No. He interrupted me. The therapist explained it to me. You never said that. I interpreted it that way because I was terrified of disappointing you, and Chloe fed that fear until it turned into resentment. We sat in silence. A silence full of uncomfortable truths. Do you know what the most painful part is? He finally asked, realizing how much time I wasted. How many Sundays? How many dinners? How many conversations that will never come back? You're here now. Is that enough? It's a start. That night I received a call. Unknown number. Mrs. Eleanor Sterling? Yes. This is Patricia Montez, attorney at law. I represent Chloe Vance. My heart raced. And my client wishes to negotiate. She is willing to sign a no-contact and confidentiality agreement in exchange for you not pressing charges. We don't plan to press charges unless she tries something. My client is also requesting compensation for emotional distress and defamation. I laughed. I actually laughed out loud. Tell your client that I have a 50-page file documenting her attempts at fraud, that I have witnesses, recordings, and an ex-fiancé willing to testify. If she wants to take this to court, it would be my pleasure. Silence on the other end. I understand. I will communicate your position. One more thing, counselor. If Chloe comes anywhere near my son, my business, or me, that file goes straight to the district attorney. Is that clear? Crystal. She hung up. 2 days later, Ethan received a package. Everything he had left in Chloe's apartment. Clothes, books, photos, and the engagement ring he had finally taken back from her, along with a note. You are, and always will be, a failure. Enjoy your pathetic life with your mother. Ethan showed me the note. I waited for it to hurt him, for him to react. Instead, he tore it into pieces. It doesn't affect me anymore, because I finally understand that her words only had the power I gave them. I looked at my son. I truly looked at him, and I saw something I hadn't seen in months. Clarity in his eyes. Mom, I know it will be a long time before you trust me again, but I want you to know something. What? I am going to be the son you deserved from the very beginning, not for the trust fund, not for the inheritance, but because I finally understand what losing you cost me. And for the first time in a year, I hugged him. I genuinely hugged him. You didn't lose me, my son. No, you just wandered off for a moment, but you found your way back. But the story doesn't end with a hug, because some lessons require time. And the true test of change is not in words, but in the actions that follow. 3 months after that night, I got news about Chloe. Rachel came running into the shop. Ma'am, you have to see this. She showed me her phone. A digital news article. Dallas businessman sues wife for marriage fraud. Chloe had gotten married, a 55-year-old man, owner of an electronics distribution company. They married 2 months after she split from Ethan. And now, he was suing her because he discovered she had falsified her income on their prenuptial agreement. He had signed a joint asset agreement, believing she had $50,000 in savings. In reality, she had $100,000 in debt. The businessman, sharper than Richard, hired investigators before she could do real damage. Now, he was seeking an annulment and restitution of expenses. I should feel sorry for her, Martha said, reading over my shoulder. But I only feel relieved that she is far away from us. Ethan read the news that night. He didn't say anything. He just shook his head. Part of me wants to feel satisfaction, but I only feel sadness for that man. It's the pattern she keeps repeating, I told him. Eventually, she will run out of victims, or find someone who isn't as merciful as we were. By then, Ethan had been working in the shop for 3 months. He had paid back $4,000 of his debt. $16,000 left to go. But something had changed in him. He arrived early. He stayed late. He learned every aspect of the business with a dedication I never saw in his corporate job. One afternoon, I found him designing a dress. Not perfectly, but with genuine effort. What are you doing? Mrs. Miller asked if we could make a dress for her granddaughter. Sweet 16. I told her I would talk to you, but I wanted to try a sketch first. I looked at the drawing. Rough, but with potential. It's good. Needs more structure here. I took the pencil and adjusted the lines, and the neckline should be more conservative for her age. We worked together for an hour, the way we hadn't since he was a kid, helping me pick out buttons. Do you know what I miss most about Chloe? He asked suddenly. I tensed up. What? Nothing. He looked at me. Absolutely nothing. And that scares me. How could I love someone who now only provokes indifference? Because it wasn't love. It was manipulation that felt like love. What does real love feel like then? I thought of Thomas. Of his calloused hands holding me after a hard day. Of his laugh when Ethan said something funny. Of how he looked at me like I was the most valuable thing in the world. Real love makes you better. It doesn't isolate you. It connects you. It doesn't make you doubt yourself. It strengthens you. It doesn't ask you to choose between them and your family. It unites them. Ethan wrote that down in his notebook. His therapist had asked him to document definitions of healthy relationships. Someday you will find that, I told him. But first you need to love yourself enough not to accept anything less. Months continued to pass. Ethan hit the 6-month mark at the shop. He had paid back nearly half his debt. He had become invaluable to the business. The clients adored him, especially the older ladies who saw in him a respectful son who had finally learned humility. One night, after closing, he called me into his room. The room he had been occupying again for 6 months. I want to show you something. He opened his laptop. Bank statements. He had saved $5,000. How? When I'm only paying you $2,000 a month? I started teaching digital marketing classes on the weekends. Online, 3 hours on Saturdays, 3 on Sundays. Honey, you're already working 6 days a week here. I know, but I want to pay my debt off faster and, he blushed. I want to save up to buy you something. Buy me what? It's a surprise, but you deserve it. 2 months later, my 68th birthday arrived. Ethan organized a dinner, just the two of us, Martha, Sarah, and Rachel. He gave me a box. Inside, a silver necklace with a vintage sewing machine charm. I had a jeweler custom make it. I engraved something on the back. I flipped the charm over. It read, "To the woman who wove my life with love," I cried. After everything that had happened, finally I cried tears of joy. I also have this. He handed me an envelope. Inside, a check for $15,000, the total remaining balance of what he had stolen. You already paid a lot of it back. I know what I owed. I worked extra. I saved every dollar. This closes that debt, Ethan. And this. Another envelope. It's a contract. I opened it. It was a voluntary waiver to any claim on the trust until he completed the required 5 years. I want to earn it, Mom. Really earn it. Not because I'm your son, but because I prove I deserve it. That night, while my employees sang the happy birthday song and we ate cake, I looked at my son. He was no longer the man who had humiliated me in that restaurant. He was no longer the boy who stole $20,000. He was someone new, someone forged in pain and rebuilt with humility. Do you know what day today is? Ethan asked me when everyone left. My birthday. It also marks 8 months since I started working here, and for the first time in my life, his voice cracked. For the first time, I feel proud of who I am. Not of what I have or what I inherit, but of who I am becoming. I hugged him. My son. My boy. My greatest pain and my greatest pride. Because poetic justice isn't always revenge. Sometimes it's watching someone fall so low they have no choice but to learn how to fly. A year after that night at the restaurant, everything had changed. Ethan no longer lived with me. He had saved enough to rent a small apartment 15 minutes from the shop. Modest, but his, earned with his own hard work. The business was thriving more than ever. Ethan had implemented digital marketing ideas that doubled our clientele. We had a social media presence. Clients could book appointments online. We even created a digital catalog. Look at this, Mom. He showed me his phone. We had 5,000 followers on Instagram. Sweet 16 girls find us here first. Then they come in with their moms. How did you learn all this? I've always known how to do it. I just used to do it for agencies I didn't care about. Now I use it for something I love. Martha officially retired. I threw her a huge party. 50 people, a live jazz band, a 3-tier cake. She cried when I handed her severance check. A retirement fund I had been saving up for her over 20 years. Eleanor, this is too much. It's what's fair. You saved me. Not just the business. Me. Sarah took her place as manager. Rachel became the supervisor. And Ethan, finally, after a year of hard work, became the director of operations. But with one condition he proposed himself. I sign a normal employment contract, with a market rate salary. No favors just for being your son. Are you sure? Completely. I want the employees to respect me for my work, not for my last name. One Saturday, while we were closing, Ethan called me into the office. Mom, I need to ask you something. I tensed up. The old fears never completely disappear. Tell me, I want you to meet someone. My heart stopped. Are you dating someone? She isn't my girlfriend. Yet, she is. Someone I met in the marketing classes I teach. Her name is Jessica. She's an elementary school teacher. A widow. She has an 8-year-old daughter. Why do you want me to meet her? Because before moving forward, I need you to approve of her. I want you to know who she is, to see that this time is different. Honey, you don't need my approval for your love life. Yes, I do. Because the last time I ignored your instincts, I almost lost everything. He took my hands. Jessica knows my whole story. I told her about Chloe, about what I did, about the year working here. And even so, she wants to get to know me better. And what do you feel? He smiled, a genuine smile I hadn't seen in years. I feel peace, no crazy excitement, no desperate butterflies, just peace. Like I finally found something real. I met Jessica the following week. She arrived with her daughter Mia, who was carrying a drawing she made for me, a sewing machine with flowers around it. "Ethan told me you are the best designer in the whole country," Mia said shyly. Jessica was beautiful, but in a quiet way. No excessive makeup. A simple mustard-colored dress. A kind smile. "Mrs. Sterling, Ethan asked me to come because he wants you to know who I really am." "And who are you?" "I've been a teacher for 10 years. I became a widow 3 years ago when my husband had a stroke. I have an apartment that I'm still paying off. I make $4,000 a month. I have no debt beyond my mortgage. And—" She paused. "I know Ethan comes with a complicated history, but I also see who he is now, and I like that person." She didn't ask about money. She didn't look at the house evaluating its worth. She didn't offer excessive compliments. She was just honest. Over coffee, I watched how Ethan interacted with Mia. Patient when she spilled her juice. Attentive when she told stories about her school. Gentle in a way he never was with Chloe. When they left, Ethan stayed behind. "Well, I like her. I really like her. Seriously? She sees you, Ethan. Not your potential inheritance. Not your last name. You. I know. That's why I'm terrified of losing her." "Then don't lose her. But don't rush either. Solid foundations take time." He smiled. "My therapist says the exact same thing." "Are you still going?" "Every week. I'll probably keep going the rest of my life. Not because I'm broken, but because I finally understand the value of taking care of my mental health." 6 months later, Ethan and Jessica officially became a couple. There was no drama, there was no manipulation. Just two adults building something real at their own pace. And when he finally asked her to be his girlfriend, he told me first, "Mom, I want to do it right this time. I want you to be part of this from the beginning. Is Jessica okay with that?" "It was her idea. She says she respects our relationship too much to build hers with me without your blessing." I cried. Because my son had finally found someone who understood that love isn't built by destroying other bonds, but by strengthening them. On the day marking his 2nd year working at the shop, Ethan called me into the office. "Today, the conditions of the trust are met. Officially, I can have access to part of the business." "I know. I don't want it." I looked at him, confused. "What?" "I want everything to stay in your name, until you are truly ready to pass it on. No pressure, no timelines. Whenever you decide." "My son. It's yours by right." "No. It's yours by hard work. I've only been here 2 years. You've been here 35. When you are ready, I will receive it with gratitude. But not before." He hugged me. "Because I finally understood something, Mom. The real inheritance isn't the dollars in the bank or the square footage of a house. It's the dignity with which you lived. The example you set. The lesson you taught me when I needed it most. And in that moment, I knew it had all been worth it. Every tear, every confrontation, every sleepless night. Because my son hadn't just grown up. He had transformed. Today I turned 69, 2 years since that night at the restaurant that changed everything. I am sitting in my shop, in the same chair where I received the news of Thomas's death 37 years ago. The same chair where I decided to never give up. The same chair where I finally learned that self-love is just as important as loving others. Ethan walked in this morning with coffee and a pastry, his ritual for the last 2 years. "Good morning, Mom. Ready for your surprise?" "What surprise?" He opened the door. Jessica and Mia walked in carrying a huge box. "It's from all of us," Jessica said, kissing my cheek. I opened the box. Inside was a photo album. But not just any album. The first page. A photo of me at 32 years old, pregnant with Ethan, next to Thomas. I didn't even remember that photo existed. "I found it in the boxes in the attic," Ethan explained, "and I decided to make something special." I kept turning the pages, my life documented in photographs and clippings. The very first ad for the seamstress business. Photos of Ethan growing up among fabrics. Martha, Sarah, and Rachel in different eras of the shop. And on the last few pages, the last 2 years. Ethan working at the shop, his graduation from his 2-year apprenticeship, a photo of the 4 of us together. Ethan, Jessica, Mia, and me. The last page. It had a letter, in Ethan's handwriting. Mom, for 32 years you gave me everything. For 1 year I repaid you with betrayal. For 2 years I've worked to earn you back. This album is my way of telling you. I understand. I understand every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every opportunity you turned down for me. But it is also my way of telling you. It is time you lived for yourself. That is why, with all the love in my heart, I ask you to accept my final gift. Resign, not from the business, but from the burden of carrying it alone. I am ready. Martha prepared me. Sarah and Rachel support me. And you deserve to rest. I am not taking your creation away from you. I am asking you to trust that I will care for it just like you cared for it, just like you cared for me. Because true inheritance isn't receiving, it is honoring, and I will spend the rest of my life honoring your example. I love you, Ethan. Tears fell onto the paper. You don't have to decide today, Ethan said softly, but think about it. Please. I looked at him. He was no longer the boy I raised. He was a man, a good man who had learned the hardest lesson the hard way. And what would I do if I retire? Jessica smiled. Whatever makes you happy. Travel. Design for pleasure. Not out of necessity. Spend time with Mia. The little girl took my hand. Teach me how to sew like you taught Ethan. I looked around the shop. 3 decades of work. 3 decades of sacrifice. 3 decades of being the Eleanor everyone needed. Who was the Eleanor no one knew? The one I had buried when Thomas died? Let me think about it, I whispered. That night, alone in my room, I opened the drawer where I kept Thomas's watch. The watch I never gave to Ethan at the restaurant. The watch that symbolized everything I almost lost. The hands were still stopped at 3:15. But maybe it was time to let them go. I called Ethan. I accept, but with conditions. Whatever you want, I remain the owner. I still sign off on major decisions, but the daily operation is yours. Perfect. And my weekends are mine. Completely. Deal. And I paused. I want the business to have a new name. Not the Sterling Atelier anymore, but Thomas and Eleanor's Atelier. So your father finally gets the recognition he deserves. Silence on the other end. Then quiet sobs. Mom, Dad would be so proud. He is. I'm sure of it. 3 months later, we inaugurated the new name, a brass plaque at the entrance. Thomas and Eleanor's Atelier. Since 1990, tradition and love in every stitch. Ethan gave a speech. He told the whole story. He didn't leave anything out. Not his betrayal, not my pain, not the lesson we both learned. My mother taught me that true love doesn't mean giving everything until you disappear. It means giving with boundaries, forgiving with dignity, and demanding the respect you deserve. The clients applauded. Martha cried in the front row. Sarah and Rachel held a massive cake, and I, for the first time in 37 years, felt complete. Not because I had gotten my son back, but because I had gotten myself back. That night, Jessica asked me, "What are you going to do with your free time?" "I am going to learn how to paint," I said. "I've always wanted to, but I never had the time." "Anything else?" "I am going to write Thomas's story, so that Mia, and whatever children Ethan might have someday, know who their grandfather was." "I like that." Ethan hugged me. "Mom, do you ever regret it?" "How you handled everything with Chloe." I thought about it honestly. No, because if I hadn't done it, you would still be lost. And I would still be the mother who gives everything and receives nothing. And now I am the mother who gave everything, demanded respect, and got her son back. Not by begging him, but by teaching him. He kissed my forehead. "You're my hero." No, I am just a woman who learned that love without dignity is not love. It is servitude. Today, as I write this in my new painting studio that Ethan built in the attic, I look out the window at the sign for the shop, Thomas and Eleanor's Atelier. 2 names, 2 lives. A story of love, loss, betrayal, forgiveness, and rebirth. And if I could give a piece of advice to any woman reading this, it would be, Never let your love for others make you forget your love for yourself. Because true wealth isn't in what you give, but in what you refuse to let them take away. Your dignity, your voice, your right to be respected. I learned that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering without pain. That family is built on respect, not just blood. And that it is never, ever too late to demand what you deserve. Because in the end, the most important lesson I taught my son wasn't about inheritances or businesses. It was about self-love. And that, dear friends, is the only inheritance that truly matters. If this story touched your heart, leave us a comment telling us where you are listening from and what lesson you take away. Like this, if you believe that love should always be accompanied by respect, and subscribe to keep sharing stories of life, dignity, and transformation like this one. Because we all deserve to remember that it is never too late to reclaim our voice. Until the next story.